Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. We talk each week about the digital marketing world and how loud and crowded it is. So you need a professional like the folks at Oak City Tech to help you get your message out to your current clients and future clients. Go to oakcitytech.com. Tell them what you're looking for. I know they'll be able to help. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you are not familiar with BNI, it's Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Each week, about 31 chapters and almost 530 members get together, and our job is to help each other grow our businesses. And our special guest today is Marty Causby with Lantech Communications. He's a managing partner. Marty is in RD18, Connections in Motion. And Marty, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you ready to talk some phone and voice over IP, and it'll be a good learning session for me.
Sure. Thank you, Mike.
You have been doing this, you've been managing partner at Lantech since December 2000.
Uh, it's really funny how that all happened, but yes, we've been going pretty strong since 2000. It's hard to believe that's 22 years ago.
You were a wee tyke when you started, right?
That's right. That's right.
Now, you guys do voice over IP. Now, let's start with that first. Do most of us really know what that is?
Well, let's start back beyond that um, because how voice over IP got here is very important. When I started out working for IBM many years ago, we had to have leased lines, and some of the names called T1s that
Mhm.
ran between sites. And they only had like 1.544 megabits of bandwidth. But so a lot of communications, you had backup lines because the carrier services really weren't that reliable. Voice over IP came out only after the infrastructure really got reliable, to say. But yeah, we've gone through a lot of progressions over the years. For Lantech, I mean, we started out being network support and started doing telephone systems, Nortel, and that advanced on into Nortel had a very good voice over IP offering called the Business Communications Manager. And then they sold that out to Avaya. And as hosted solutions became more reliable, that's when we got into the real voice over IP and unified communications arena.
And for those of us, so literally, what is voice over IP?
It's really simple. It's digitizing the voice traffic and running across an IP protocol, internet protocol. There were so many different protocols, but um, internet protocol is just the simplest way to do it. You had TCP/IP, which is transmission control internet protocol. But like I say, as things became more reliable, we didn't need that transmission control protocol. So that's why they just call it voice over internet protocol.
Got it. Now, if somebody is looking to start a business or basically move into an office space, what are some things they need to think about for their phone system?
Well, if it's a very small uh, company, and when I say small, maybe 1 to 5 phones, um, the most important thing you can do is have a good connection with the uh, internet service provider, whether that's Spectrum or any of the other leading providers, AT&T. And it's all about having the bandwidth. Depending on the type of traffic that you're going to have, whether you're going to create a small call center or you're just using your phones for contacting customers. Um, so you need to make sure you have enough bandwidth. Most voice over IP phone calls take a little bit more than 100K of bandwidth, so it's not a lot. But one of the most important things is setting up your routers and switches correctly so you can give priority to the voice traffic. Computers can deal with any kind of retransmissions, but with voice, you've got to be um, synchronized. Otherwise, you'll start breaking up on it. And you'll have every other third word. So I would say your router and your internet service, because your telephone system, your hosted telephone system will only be as reliable as the service and the router that you have.
Do we kinda take our phone systems for granted because I have a phone and I pick it up and dial and everything works accordingly?
Well, that was the problem with phone systems. Everybody had a phone, so they think they know how it works. But the phones of today are really computers, and you really have to download templates and set up the protocols. So it's a lot more to it than just plugging a phone in now. And with unified communications, where we actually have an application that runs on your computer that allows you to make and receive phone calls from your computer, or even an app on your cell phone. Um, some companies, even the smaller ones, are not even buying phones for the desk anymore. They're just using the application on their PC, hence voice over IP, or they're using an app on their cell phone. So we really don't sell phones as much anymore. Now, traditional offices, they like to have phones. With the hybrid setup that they have now, where people working from home or coming into the office, we can set it up so that if it's a shared workspace, each employee can log in to a phone and then they have their extension. So we can personalize it that way, so you can have a shared workspace but still have your extension come up on the phone. Otherwise, you're going to use an application on your cell phone or an application on your computer.
And that's where I was headed next. The effect COVID had on Lantech and what opportunities or surprises it may have shown you as people were started working remotely in droves.
Well, with everyone staying home for COVID, I mean, we've been very fortunate that we have a tremendous group of customers. And the flexibility that Voice over IP gave them is that everyone could still work from home, but each employee was just an extension away. So it just gave credibility to why you need to have the flexibility of Voice over IP to allow people to work from home. Because, like I say, flexibility and freedom is the new currency.
And you've got did you have some clients or did you gain some clients during COVID that were just caught off guard with, "Hey, I've gotta have 20 people working from home. What do I do? Please help."
You know, we had already set that up for them. As a lot of people were sending their employees home, they weren't, and if they didn't have a voice over IP application, they really weren't sure how to handle it. And a lot of people were working off their cell phones, which meant that if they took a call, they couldn't transfer it to anybody, um, which was very restrictive. But for our customers, we already had it set up so that it would be a seamless operation for them to have a hybrid workforce. And I say hybrid, meaning either at the office or at home. So it really gave us a lot of credibility into what we've been telling everybody. Um, like I say, we've been very fortunate to
And
have the great customers we have.
my sense is once companies got the word to start sending employees home, you probably got a bunch of calls in a very short window, right?
We did, and we helped everybody that we could possibly help. Um, some people were in a position to take advantage of it, and some people really weren't because of the product that they sold, and a lot of their customers were having issues. So, but for us, as far as Lantech Communications is concerned, we monitored the networks, we took care of our customers, we made sure that they were not going to have any problems. See, a long time ago, Mike, we stopped trying to sell people what they need, and we catered more to their wants. And my job is to remind people of some of the things that may happen, some of the wants they may need to look into. And so we built things accordingly, and we took care of their needs without them having to ask for it.
I would imagine sometimes you're like the insurance company where people don't need you till they need you, and then they realize, "Oh, crap, I'm not prepared."
Well, see, if I do my job correctly, my phone's never going to ring. they're not going to need me because what a lot of our customers know is I'm on the backside. I'm watching out for what they're doing. I'm a lot of times I'll find a problem before they will, and so they never see the problem. And that's what separates us from a lot of our competitors. People know us. And when would you rather call Spectrum or AT&T, or would you rather call Marty?
Well, and that brings up my next point. If BNI has taught me many things, and the one, probably the number one or number two thing it has taught me is to shop local, because people, back to your point right there, people have your cell phone number and they know they're going to get Marty instead of, hey, this is Bill. And they call next day, hey, this is Susie. And they call a fourth day and they have no idea who they're going to get. And then they have to run through the problem again. So that's what I love about companies like yours and the folks in BNI is it's shop local and you get the decision maker.
We had a company that used to call me on a regular basis to come and help them with different projects they had going on, and it would always be off hours or on the weekends. Um, and finally, I just asked them, why do you continue to call us? And it was just a very straightforward. They didn't have to think about it. They said, because we know you care. And you always hear that old saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that's the truth. Because you need to be taking care of your customers. A lot of companies are so focused on getting new customers that they're not taking care of the customers they already have. And that's a big focus for us, because if I take care of my customers, they'll bring me referrals or new customers.
That
And
worked for a boss years ago, and he just preached to the staff. It's a whole lot cheaper and easier to keep a client than to go find a new one. You're absolutely right on that.
right, and we do a lot of different things. I mean, one day we're putting in a wireless network. One day we're just cabling a data network. Um, but I always tell my techs, no matter how good a job you do, if you leave a mess, that's all they'll remember. So you need to be conscientious, not only in taking care of the customer, but taking care of the customer's site. And I'll tell you one quick little story. Um, and sometimes I don't always stay in my lane, but it works out well. We were putting in voice and data cabling for a medical office, and which had us up in an attic, which was a walkable attic. And as the technicians were dropping the cables, I noticed that the insulation was stacked up next to the wall. And so before we left, I went and laid all the insulation back out in the guy's attic because it was the right thing to do. And about a week or two went by, and he called me and he was very excited and almost seemed upset. And he's like, "What did you do in my office?" And I didn't know how to respond. I mean, we did exactly what we told you we were going to do. He says, "No, you did something different." And he said, "For the last 6 to 8 months, I have not been able to control the temperature in my office. And now everything works perfectly. What did you do?" And I said, "Well, I simply laid out the insulation. All your insulation had been taken up and stacked against the wall." And he was so excited. Do you know how many people he told that to? Um, we got a lot of referrals because when we come in, if you see something not right, you need to let somebody know. Or if it's something simple, go ahead and fix it for the customer. And um, and that's what makes a lot of the difference. Is, do you care about what you're doing and the customer you're working for?
Yeah, and one of the questions I enjoy asking small business owners is, do you perceive your, and sometimes you can be both, but do you perceive your company as an experience or a transaction? And that story sums up that you guys clearly are an experience. Be
Well, that's going to take you a much further down the road. And I tell people all the time, I'm a terrible salesperson. The best sell I ever made was to get my wife to marry me. Um, so when I sit down with a customer, I really want to know what their pain points are. What is it that they really need? What are they looking for? How do you want to see this, several years down the road? Because we need to lay that foundation now. Um, and I had a gentleman one time ask me, he says, "Marty, why are you asking me all these questions?" And I said, "Well, I said, Steve, I'll tell you the truth. I don't have any problems, and I don't want any problems, and I don't want you to have any problems. Because like I said, if I do my job right, you'll never call me. So that's when you need to sit down and plan with your customer. And I guess that's more of a consultative selling,
Mm,
kind of like BNI is a relationship,
yep,
relationship selling, I guess.
yep.
Um, but that's what makes the difference is getting to know your customer before you just jump in and try to sell a product or a service.
And I've learned over time also getting to know more and more financial advisors is if they've much like you, if they've done all the prep work and their clients have everything they need, when the market goes wonky, they don't call because they know that they've been educated on what they have and they're taken care of.
Well, that's a very big point you just mentioned there. That's something that we do differently. We try to educate our customers. I don't want them to feel like they have to call me uh, when something needs to change. If they need to change a name, if they need to make a recording, if they, need to look at opening a new office. I try to educate them and I give them the keys to the city. I show them how to use it. I show them how to take care of the day-to-day issues if they need it. But I'm always here if you need to call me. But education seems to be lacking in a lot of places. We're not just going to program a bunch of phones and mail them to you. That's not what we do. I want to be there on your opening day if I can. And I want to make sure that we're there to make sure everything's going to work. And that's a big difference I find in this industry because like you say, it's become very transactional. They sell you a phone system and they program a phone and then it arrives in the mail. I don't like to do business that way.
Yeah, a lot of business owners forget the customer service part of it, back to what you were saying earlier, and it's those little things that are customer retention without even trying to retain them, you just show up and like you said, you do the right thing.
Yeah, it's a
S
lot of fun. Instead of trying to build my business around my life, or build my life around my business, I build my business around my life. So, I mean, I have services up and down the East Coast. So if I know a client is opening an office in Richmond, let's say, and I go for regular education and training because there's always new features and functions coming on. And so I'll run up to Pennsylvania for a course. Well, guess what? I've got to drive right through Richmond. So why not stop off at that customer site and make sure they're ready for their opening day? And then 3 or 4 days later, when my class is over, I've got to drive right back through Richmond on the way home. So I stop in and make sure everything's running. And it's just a little bit of effort, a little bit of planning, and it makes a big difference in your customer relationship.
and the phones working are the number one priority, but what the client really will remember are those little moments when you show up to be part of a big moment for them.
Well, that is a big. That's something that I laugh about. I mean, how many phone guys do you know just call up your office or stop by your office and say, "Hey, how's it going? Are you doing all right?"
I think it's probably
And I
less than 1, right?
right. But now, don't get me wrong. It puts you in a situation that I am giving myself to them to fix whatever problems they have if I can fix it. But yeah, I like doing that. It surprises some people.
Yeah, I bet it
And
does. I bet it
but
does. So, long or on or about December 2000, when you started Lantech, who did you start it with, and how did it become a reality?
actually, I had worked for corporate America um, for 22 years. I guess I started on December 4th, 1978, and actually left corporate America on December 5th, 22 years later. And I had a job offer to be a project manager for the EPA, doing their telephone services and stuff of that nature. But I'd never had really a vacation, a 2 to 3 week vacation. So I told them, just give me 3 weeks and let me have a 3 week vacation and then I'll start the new job. Well, I got so bored in those 3 weeks, and people found out that I was not currently employed, and they started asking me to come by and visit and take a look at the new suite before they moved in, or they'd ask me to sit in on a meeting. And I thought to myself, I could do this for a living, and that's where Lantech came from. I thought about it long and hard and prayed for it, and the happiest I was in my career was when I was a local area network technician. So that's where I came up with Lantech Communications, because it's doing what I like to do. And that's how it all got started. Now, the fun part about it is I created a brochure because I figured if this group for the EPA would hire me, then maybe they'd hire my company. And when I got in there, they were just moving into the new building, and I believe that whole group had been laid off. So had I taken the job, I'd have been laid off in 3 weeks anyway. And that's really how Lantech got started. Was because I've known so many people, had so many relationships, and I've been at IBM for at least 16 years, and the rest is just fun. Going out and meeting people, and that's one reason why I came back to BNI. With COVID and 2 years of being remote, I had to get back with people. I had to get back to building those relationships, and BNI has just been the best way to do that.
Do you remember your first client?
My very first client,
Yes, for Lantech.
um, I'm not even sure I can remember my very first client. I remember the very first telephone system I sold and put in. It was for Dr. Michael Bass over in Apex, and he had a very small office. And a lot of times we tease that God put me in the right position at the right time, because as he was getting ready to move in, and I'm over there checking on to make sure his telephones are working, he accidentally left a sink running,
No.
and it was plugged, and his sink overflowed, and it was just mayhem. But luckily for him, I had a rather large wet dry vac in my truck, and so here's the telephone guy vacuuming water out of his office because his opening day was coming, and that was a long time ago.
And
But
when you're a one-man shop, sometimes you gotta wear about 7 or 8 different hats, right?
well, consequently, Dr. Michael Bass is still a customer of mine. 22 years later, and we have upgraded him as technology got better. And so uh, that's what it takes, I guess, is taking care of people.
Yep.
But
And
he's still with us, and that was my very first telephone system I sold and put in as an independent.
I
Uh,
think that speaks volumes of people and their business when they can say they've had a client X number of years through a move or 2 and stuff like that. But can I assume he has a shop vac in a storage closet somewhere?
I hope so. I really do, because he's just expanded. So I hope there are times when we remind each other of that moment and we both laugh. But yeah,
Now
the phone
yeah,
the phone guy's in there vacuuming his carpet for him, is well, the water out of the carpet.
yeah. You were yeah, good thing you had that shop vac in the truck, right?
Isn't that the truth?
I love those
Good
moments in
time.
time, yep.
Yeah, good
As
time.
a small business owner, obviously the family comes along in a way because life comes along in the way that, you get a call at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. Hey, sometimes you got to take it, stuff like that. Your wife, Colleen, I always like asking people on the show this question. How did you two meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
Ah, well, we both met. Actually, I met her on the school bus, and she was a substitute driver. She drove the school bus when we were in high school, and um, I did too. I ended up driving a school bus for a couple years at Sanderson High School, and at that time, the students drove the bus, and that's how she and I met. But she was a grade ahead of me, so she took off and went to let's see, she went to Appalachian State first, and we lost contact, and we both went in different directions. But later on, found each other down the road, and it's worked out real well. She's
A-
a great lady.
And where was the first date once you two went out?
Our first date,
Yeah.
wow, I'm not really sure. Um, to be honest, the first time we were out and about by ourselves was going to see her baby brother being born. Um, we were 16, 17 years old, and she was dating a baseball player. And my hair was a little bit longer, and and brown, and I was probably skinny as I could be. And I let her drive my car. Silly as that sounds. And as we got back to her house, Mark was there, the baseball player, and he comes over and jerks the passenger door open, not realizing that's where I was. And so I stepped out, and I don't know if you really call that our first date, but
It's a
that was
memorable one.
the first time we were really smitten with
Now,
each other.
yep. So you and I have a high school connection. You went to my dreaded rival high school because I went to Millbrook.
To Broughton?
I went to Millbrook,
Oh, Millbrook. Okay.
and I grew up off of Falls, right at pretty much the intersection of Falls and Millbrook.
Uh,
And in 1979 or 78, that was my start of my senior year. And that's when they decided to redistrict our neighborhood. So my brother, who was going to be a sophomore in high school, they sent him to Sanderson, and they gave the rising seniors at Millbrook a choice if you want to stay at Millbrook or go to Sanderson. I'm like, I'm not going to Sanderson.
how about that? Yeah, I hung out with a bunch of Millbrook people. I actually, um, mom and dad's house was right at the end of Lassiter Mill and Camelot. So growing up, I just walked to school up at Carroll Junior High, or at least that's what it was then.
Yep.
Now it's Carroll Middle School, I guess. So they were just a block down the road from Carroll, and just a block up down the road from where North Hills, the first North Hills, was created.
Yes.
But and Sanderson was a little bit more than 2 miles,
Yep.
and there were times I walked to school. But yeah, I wanted to drive, and so that's why I took school bus driving course. So now I could drive to school every day.
There you go. And what was the pay back then? Do you remember?
I don't even remember. I think I saved a check stub somewhere, but it wasn't really much. Wasn't really much.
The car that you let Colleen drive of yours, what kind of car was that?
Believe it or not, it was a Datsun.
Ooh.
Yeah, a little 510 Datsun,
All right.
a little sedan, two-door sedan. And but I mean, heck, we drove anything we could drive at that time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I drove
Uh,
my mom's car just so I could drive.
yeah,
I
that
didn't
little car went through it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't care about that at all. I just wanted to drive and get out of the
Yeah.
house. So,
Yeah.
so you and I, so you have 2 daughters and a son, but you and I also share another connection, grandparents. Now, I'm not to 7 yet. I have one who's 3.5, and on or about August 20th, we're gonna get our second one.
Wow.
And I know how awesome it is to have one. I can't imagine how much fun it is to have 7.
Well, I took 5 of them off the other day, and I was unsupervised. Um, but it was really funny. We had picked up a couple of them that needed to spend the night, and nobody brought casual shoes. And we were going to go to a park. Now, Letty is the youngest, and she's just turned 4. Before that, she was like a blender without a lid. But so I went and bought everybody shoes, and then we went to the park and made sandwiches, and we were sitting in the park and playing. And I see them all running around in the sandbox, and nobody has the shoes on. And I'm thinking, well, why did we go buy shoes if you're just going to take them off? But we had a good time. It was a good age range from 4 to 11.
Wow.
And everybody looked after each other. And that was the main thing I needed to teach them, is never leave each other alone somewhere. You know, if somebody gets tired and they need to sit down, then you sit down and wait for them.
Yep.
And teaching them to look after each other and take care of each other, because that's what's important.
Do they all live around here?
They do. We're very fortunate. One group lives up off of Leesville Road, and the other group lives out toward Buffalo Road. And we're very, very fortunate. Now, our son's down in Wilmington, and he's still having fun. And you know, who knows what his future may hold. He's into everything, which I'm very lucky. One of my customers is opening a new office in Wilmington.
Just gonna
And,
head that way for a business trip, and you can write them off now, right?
I'm thinking that maybe Lantech could rent an apartment in Wilmington, and I'll work down there every Friday and Monday. And because Wilmington's where I used to drive anyway. I worked for a company called PPD for a while, and their headquarters is in Wilmington. Matter of fact, that's one reason why I got out of corporate America. They're such a great company that they went from like maybe 20 people in Wilmington and 20 people, 15 people here in RTP to almost 4,000 worldwide in less than 5 years. So what that means is I never had a weekend off. I never had a vacation. And quite often I would drive to Wilmington. So it's a very, very quick ride to Wilmington now that we've got I-40 going through. So it's not too bad.
And you know where all the good hangouts are, right?
I know where several of them are. And it's generally wherever my son is. Um, but he's doing very well down there. He loves it down
And
there. And
not a bad place to visit, right?
not a bad place to visit. But I'd love to build more business in Wilmington.
Yes.
Because they need a lot of support. They need a lot of help. And so I've got my sights set on Wilmington right now.
Okay. When you opened your doors for the first time, were you the salesperson and the technician?
Yes. Matter of fact, that's one of the problems I have, is I still work too much in my business instead of working on my business. I like being there at the beginning of a project. I like seeing a project closed and the finished product. But sometimes I am way too involved. I still climb a ladder from time to time, and everything from configuring the router to working with the ISPs to make sure. See, as an indirect rep for all the carriers, customers can actually order their service through us. And the advantage for customers is I'm going to be there when the guy comes in to put the service and make sure that he's putting in the right service at the right place, so we can utilize it for the network cabinet or rack. And then if a customer has a problem, I still encourage them to create a trouble ticket, but they can call me, give me the ticket number, and I can come in from the back end and be an advocate for the customer. Because we speak all those languages. We speak phone, we speak data. And that way the customer can focus on their business and we focus on helping them run their business.
And sitting here today, how many techs do you have?
I have a couple technicians that take care of the cabling. We have programmers and technicians that monitor the network 24/7. And it's really a good group. We have a lot of strategic relationships. But yeah, we've gone through a lot of iterations, because if you think, I believe it was 1980, 2007, I guess, 2008 is when we had several salespeople and more technicians. But as the recession kicked in 2008, we had to let a lot of people go. But we still maintain that relationship with them and bring them in whenever we can to help get them some work. And it's people that we know and work with. But I mean, even for when 2008 was declining, I was so worried about the economy, but we were positioned in such a way that not only were we putting phone systems in, but we were taking phone systems out. Because a lot of companies were moving and changing because they could buy a larger office for a smaller amount. So for us, that was just a different side of the business that we hadn't considered. And so that's really what got us through the recession. And that's how we really survived the recession. And because of our relationships, we still had customers coming in, and we didn't need a lot of salespeople at that time because we have so many referrals. And that's just a great way to run the business. See, I don't sell my services. People buy from me, and that's very different.
Agreed.
It's a lot of fun.
I imagine back in the day, you have this warehouse area just full of phones and routers. Am I close to being correct?
Well, no, a very smart electrician was walking me through his warehouse of spare parts. And he looked to me and he said, "Marty, don't do this." He said, "Do not collect spare parts and do not overbuy, because one day you'll be paying for this extra space." And so I've really taken that to heart. Now, we had an office in Cary at one time, and that is where a lot of old equipment went to die. Because see, customers don't come to our office. We do all our work in the customer's office. So no, I made a point not to collect a lot of equipment or more than what we can sell or provide. Now, we try to keep different styles of phones and stuff that we have out in the market, so that if someone needs another phone, I don't have to try and order it. I have one that I can bring to their office. But we don't keep an overabundance of equipment because it's just going to lose value. And technology changes so quickly that it's better for me to give you an upgraded piece of equipment than something that's already outdated.
And looking back over business careers, sometimes the best advice you get is when someone tells you what not to do instead of what to do.
Because they've already done it. Yeah, but yeah, I do remember that.
I'm glad you still do it. Obviously hit home with you.
Yeah, I did. Well, and like you said, COVID's changed my mindset about offices. Right now, you see me, I'm working out of my home, and that's a convenience. Again, freedom's the new currency. And so we've got into a co-working space so that when I'm out in the world or I'm visiting different customer sites or doing things, it gives me somewhere to go where I can sit down and take a conference room, where I can sit down and meet with a client. And we got into a group called Raleigh Founded. And there's an office down off of Capitol Boulevard and Crabtree Boulevard that I use on a regular basis, where there's one downtown called at the warehouse at South Harrington Street, 310 South Harrington Street. And I go down there quite a bit. There's a mail drop for us there. But what it does is it gives me access to offices all over the area, whether it's Raleigh, Centennial Campus, we can go to Greensboro, there's one in Wilmington that we can use. And so that gives me a lot more flexibility to work wherever I am. I'm not stuck in one place. It's kind of like, well, not to bore you with stories. My wife, I always leave my phone on. If you need me, you call me. And the wife doesn't always like that because if I'm on a cruise ship, you can call me on the cruise ship, but you won't realize I'm on the cruise ship because you're calling my office number.
Yep.
And I got to ask you, if I'm on a cruise ship passing the Caicos Islands, and I did get 2 phone calls where customers had a question, did they really care where I was?
Nope.
Did they get service? Yes. Or I've been on a little place called Robbinsville, North Carolina, down at the tip of North Carolina, and the wife had to run to the restroom. And one of my clients in Charlotte called and said, Marty, can you help me with this? And I said, sure, let me call you back. And I used my phone and dialed into the server, made the changes for her, and called her back. And she said, oh, that's great. Thank you. Did she really care that I was sitting on a bench in Robbinsville looking at the mountains? No. And so that's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, when they sign on the dotted line to do business with you, they just want the access, right?
They just want someone they can call when they have trouble,
Yeah,
someone they can depend on that's
yeah.
going to show up. And that's very important to me because in this day and time, when everyone has a phone in their pocket, if you're going to be late to a meeting or you're not going to be there, you need to call somebody. I do not want somebody sitting around waiting for me.
Yes.
How many times do you like calling and the technician, well, we'll be there somewhere between 8 and 5. Well,
Yeah, that was old
can you
school.
tighten it
Yeah.
down a little bit for me?
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, when I make an appointment, I try to be there.
Mhm.
And if not, pick up the phone and call somebody. Let them know I'm stuck in traffic. Let them know
Yeah.
that I'm on my way. And
Yeah.
that's really important to me. And I hope I haven't left anybody hanging when I say that. But
I'm with you. It's just common decency at its core.
integrity,
Yeah.
I think what it's called.
Yeah. And
Um,
and again, and you giving them a heads up, you're managing your client's expectations when you say, hey, traffic on this road, my GPS says about 15 minutes. Just want to let you know. Now they know. They don't have to sit around and start fuming at 5 after that. Where is that guy? I'm gonna, whatever. So I'm with you on that.
well, and that's like you said, that's all part of business. I
Mhm.
mean, be honest with people.
Yep.
If I can do that, I'll tell you I can do that. If I can't do that, I'll tell you I can't do that. And I'll try and help find someone who can for you. But yeah, don't be just selling somebody something, knowing that you can't perform. So just be honest. It's called integrity.
Yeah, and don't
And
sell me an excuse, just tell me there's traffic on 40 and nothing you can do about it, and you're gonna be 10 minutes late. I got no problem
that's
with
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
that way, that person doesn't have to sit there waiting on you
yeah,
and wondering whether you're even going to show up.
there you go. That's the
And
problem
that,
because then they're making it up in their head like, "Oh, he forgot about me," or "He doesn't care about me," or yeah, and just that nothing but bad can come of that. I'm with you on
yeah.
that.
And that's just a courtesy, isn't it?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Professional courtesy.
Yep. Now, you mentioned earlier your first job was at IBM. Can I picture you in the, coat and tie with the wingtip shoes?
Not till later on.
Okay.
Um, I came in through the back door. At that time, we had manufacturing, um, and we still manufactured PCs. And I came in through production control. I was an expediter. It was my job to make sure that the assembly lines were running smoothly, that they had the supplies that they need to run. And as an expediter, um, I would take a requisition and go back to the warehouse area and procure the parts. Except I did things a little differently. A lot of the other expediters would take their requisition, put it in a box, and then go sit down in the break room and wait for the guys to fill the rec. And then once the rec was filled, they would come take it to the line. Well, you know me, I hate to sit around too much. And I would take the rec and I'd look at the guy behind the counter and said, if you let me go ahead and fill this, I'll tear this little ticket stub off and you can put it in your box and get credit for filling the rec.
Nice.
And he said, well, sure. So I started filling my own requisitions, and people couldn't figure out how is it that Marty always gets the part to the line immediately
Mm,
instead of taking half a day to get it there. Well, because Marty goes back and fills the rec and gives it to somebody else to take the credit and make sure the lines don't go down.
mhm. A
Um,
and word
and that was
traveled
just,
fast about that, and they're like, "Hey, can we get Marty on this job?"
well, it happens quite often, and because Marty's very flexible. I remember one time we were having an anniversary, and I was taking my wife out to a little place called the Village Dinner Theater, which used to be down on 70 where the Exxon is. And the reason why we were going to the Village Dinner Theater is because I knew that I had a flight coming in that evening that was bringing jumpers, little wire jumpers that the assembly line needed. And that flight was going to come in shortly after the Village Dinner Theater play and dinner was over. And so I took the wife out for our anniversary dinner. And at the end of it, I said, hey, hon, do you mind if I stop by the airport real quick? And we left Raleigh, the Village Dinner Theater, and went up. I picked up my parts, drove by the site, dropped them off, and then we went home. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it. Well, see, that's the problem, Mike. I enjoy what I do,
Yeah,
um, and that makes a big difference.
yep. We have been putting your phone number up during the show here so people know where to call you. What's, the best website? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you that way?
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is to call me,
Okay.
um, because I'm the telephone guy. I may be out and about. I may get your email, but I may not see it right away because I'm usually on the move, going somewhere, working with someone. And if you need me right now, call me. Otherwise, you can send it to my email, which is Marty at lantechcom.com, and that's two M's. Um, COMM is the abbreviation for communication, so that's why it's lantechcom.com. And as soon as I get back and settle down in front of a PC, I can return your email. But if you need me right now, pick up the phone and call me. Of course, that's the old adage, if your phone doesn't work, call me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the easiest way to get in touch with me
Okay.
because I'm very mobile.
All right. So if anybody getting ready to upgrade their phone system at work or getting ready to start one and they need a good phone system, you know that Marty will take his wife to dinner and then drive by the airport just for you. whether you got 5 phones or 100 phones. I believe he'll do it the same way for any kind of client. So,
No, they
Marty,
just
yep,
and then Marty will show up,
there you go.
and
Uh,
that makes the big difference.
yeah, so I got to ask, since I've known you, you've had the mustache. Does that mustache go all the way back to high school?
There's been different times where I have a mustache or I don't have a mustache, but
Yeah.
yes, as soon as I was able to grow a mustache, I think my first IBM ID had the shadow of a mustache in 1978.
All
But
right.
yeah, you know why I have a mustache, Mike?
Why?
Because my wife likes it.
There you go. All that
Amen.
matters. But back in the day with that first mustache was some flowing brown hair, I bet, right?
It was, and there were different beards and different tries
Yep.
to see what it looks like. See, women can dye their hair and just change their whole look. We're kind of limited on
Yes,
what we can do, so we
we are.
carve out different artistics on
Yeah.
our face there.
Yeah. I think we've ruled out the mullet and everything else is probably in play, right?
That's right. That's right. Nature will take care of the rest of it.
Yeah. I'm trying to hang on to what nature's given me. So, yeah, so
And not too worried about what color it turns, right?
no,
It's so funny, Mike. Just to tell you a real quick story, real
yep.
fast. I had a young lady that used to work for me, and she had beautiful red hair. And she came running in one time, and she was mad as a wet hen, throwing her books down on the desk. And I'm going, "What's wrong?" And she's like, people kept calling her red, and she didn't like it. She hates it when people judge you by the color of your hair. And I said, "Me too."
Yep. I'm with you on that. But I tell people don't let the gray fool you. Okay.
No, I started early. I'm just waiting for all my friends to catch up.
There you go. There you go. Anyways, Marty, it's been a blast having you on. I know we go way back to a couple of BNI chapters. Glad to have you in RD18 and glad to hear your story and wonderful success and hope much more comes your way in 2022.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate everything you do.
And we'll see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.